Yeah, so my light just went out. I don't know what's going on. See, that's how I know it's going to be a good conversation because the light just went out on top of my face. All right, do me a favor. Share this out on your network. Tag somebody in the conversation. Let's get this. Who is breathing like that on the set? Lord, that's how you know we're about to have some real good black talk. Somebody's already breathing crazy and whatnot. This is season 7, episode 3, 7 Generations Black. Now someone's singing. I don't really know what's going on. We need you to share this out on your network. We need you to tag a friend in, and we need you to get ready to talk this 7 Generations Black talk with us. It is going to get good. As you know, on here, we are unbossed. So get ready for this great conversation. Today's show has been powered by none other than the Black Boss Summit. It's the 5th annual Black Boss Summit going down September 10th through the 12th, featuring none other than Mr. Hill Harper himself. Go ahead and do me a favor. Grab your seats. Yeah, grab your seats. I was gonna match you, but never mind. It's fine. Grab your seats at www.blackbosssummit.com. This is powered by the Black Business Initiative, and guess what? This is the first year we have gone free for the virtual tickets, and it may be the only year. So go ahead and grab your virtual seat if you can't make it in person. But my people that are ready to network and take your life to the next level, meet us in person and go ahead and grab your seat. Again, it's www.blackbosssummit.com. We can't wait to see you in the building. Get ready for the 5th annual Black Boss Summit. You're tuned in to 7 Generations Black. Welcome to 7 Generations Black, a podcast powered to equip and inform you, clear your lens, and present you with a new perspective. With my amazing cast, the one and only Theo E.J. Wilson. What up, Theo?
What's up? What's up?
I don't know what y'all are doing over here. The one and only Mr. H Soul. And I think he's in he's in Costa Rica, not Cuba today. He's in Costa Rica, joining us from Costa Rica. Hold it down. The one and only Mr. Lethal.
What's up with all the What's up with all the head shaking on the?
He ain't even in Costa Rica no more. Look at this.
I thought we were supposed to be happy for each other, black people, uplifting black people and shit.
I was just pointing out you ain't in Costa Rica no more because you on the move.
Tell her where you at.
Costa Rica.
Boom. Thank you. She tried it.
Look at outside that window. Ain't that the view y'all had last week?
Ooh, that's Costa Rica.
I thought you was in Mexico. I thought you was making other moves.
No, not yet.
Mm-hmm. See, that's what happens when somebody try to one up you on the middle of the live set. He's in Costa Rica. Now, the only lady on here, hold it down for the ladies. The one and only Jice Johnson. What's happening? And of course, I'm your host, Shay J. We are 7 Generations Black. Man, the conversation today is going to get good because it's about the moral high ground. Yes, the moral high ground, which we're learning how to do this within our own group right here. How do we take the moral high ground? I think I just showed you what to do when someone like Jice tries to one-up you on the show. Just take the high ground and let her know. You're wrong, but I understand, sis. All right, black people are all... This is terrible. Black people are always encouraged to take the moral high ground. We all remember Michelle Obama's famous saying that's on t-shirts. It's around the world. You can see it anywhere you go. And now everyone says it right along with her. When they go low, we go high. Now, how has that worked out for us? Well, we promote nonviolence, and then they still are violent to us. We promote integrity, and then they are gerrymander. We promote fairness, and they promote eliteness. So I think we have to really talk about this moral high ground. They criminalize and shame when they cover up their corruptness, and they also talk about taking the moral high ground. But yet there is no course for the action when they don't do it. There's a set of rules that I think black people always abide by or are told to abide by, but no one else is abiding by these rules. So today we're going to really talk about this moral high ground. Is it really working for us? But of course, first let me hit you with the red pill alert. This is your last chance. After this, there's no turning back. This is your opportunity to stop listening and tune out now. And if you do, well, the story ends and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever it is you want to believe. However, if you take this 7 Generations red pill, you stay here with us in a liberatory discussion and we show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. The choice, as always, is yours. Welcome to 7 Generations Black. do me a favor, tag someone in this conversation. I want to know your thoughts, because one thing I know for sure, we're not a monolithic people. So I think this conversation can get good and we can unpack this in so many different ways. So tag in, let us know your thoughts. Let us know if somebody in the cast is speaking your language or if we're off a little bit. We want to hear from you. Let's get this thing going, the moral high ground. First, I just want to kick it off with my guy, Lethal. I'm a little nervous to start with you. But I'm going to start with you, Lethal, just, out of good favor. I'm going to start with you. The moral high ground, sir. Is this working for us? And what does it even mean when we say take the moral high ground and you hear that aspect? What does that mean to you?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, he's about to go in. Yeah, we can hear you.
So I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be cool. I'm gonna be cool.
Okay.
So let's talk about Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, okay?
Oh.
And the comment that she made.
Oh.
Okay?
Woo! Child!
She made that comment as Michelle Obama, aka former First Lady, right?
Okay.
She did not make that comment as Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, born in Chicago in 1964 to marry Ann and Fraser Robinson, one a homemaker and the other one who worked in the sewer plant or water treatment plant. Okay. I think we need to look at where she was at, right? And her mindset when she made those comments. Okay. There's a good book out by a doctor. Her name is Ruby K. Payne. Full disclosure, she's a white woman. I'm just throwing it out there. But it's a book.
Jice went away. You said she's a white woman. Jice went away.
I know, but it's a book called "The Framework for Understanding Poverty: A Cognitive Approach." And what it speaks to and talks about is the different approaches based off of where you are economically. You understand what I'm saying? And so Michelle Obama was speaking from that perspective, right? But I'm not going to burn the sister. I'm not going to throw out there like that because I'm not here for that, right? But there is I think it's a November 2018 article in the Time magazine online where she goes on and she provides additional further explanation for what it was that she meant. And so I think that the people need to look up this article. I'll send you all the link via your phone so you can post it up there for the audience and whatnot, right? But to get to this issue of moral high ground, I think it has been presented in a way that says we as Black people, when we take a moral high ground, we have to do it in a way that is void of us being angry and expressing and sharing our anger, right? But there's another book out. I'm full of books today. It's called The Upside of Your Dark Side. And what this book speaks to and talks about is being angry is good sometimes, because studies show that individuals who hold on to their anger and don't get it out of their system are at an increased risk for heart attack and other types of health issues. You understand what I'm saying? And there are studies that are showing, it's one particular study by a Dr. Ernest Harburg out of the University of Michigan School of Public Health. Him and his team spent several decades tracking some adults in a longitudinal study of anger. That's a big word. Don't get lost with it, right? But what they found, right, was that the men and women who hid their anger in response to unjust attacks found themselves more likely to bronchitis and heart attacks and other upper respiratory issues, right? And were more likely to die earlier than peers who let their anger be known when other people were annoying. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, okay, Black people, and I'm only saying all of this to simply say to my Black people, it's okay to be angry. And it's okay to let those who are fucking with you know that you are angry with them fucking with you. You don't have to hold it in. And so this moral high ground idea, concept, theory that honestly, quite frankly, stems from the church, where we've been told we have to turn the other cheek. And this idea of how the good Dr. Martin Luther King conducted himself, it's void of the understanding that this same Dr. King, in I think it was 1967 in November, in an NBC interview, said that the dream that he had that day turned into a nightmare, and that he was full of hope and optimism, and what he needed was a shot, an injection of some realism.
That's real.
You understand what I'm saying? And so I know we don't learn these things in school and so forth and so on. And yes, those of us on this panel, you know, we have a different level of awareness, right?
Yeah.
But quite frankly and honestly, it's like it's on each and every last one of us to accept the personal responsibility to get out here and learn some things and not move in a space, as we said a few podcasts ago, dealing with Sister Simone Biles. Stop moving in spaces that you know are not in your best interests here and here, because it's killing you.
Man, facts. I think what I love most too is, and that's why we do 7 Generations Black, so we can unpack some things. I remember when I learned that thing about Dr. Martin Luther King, I was like, all these years I've been fooled. And I thought I was over here supposed to be nice as pie. And I was like, he had a dream, y'all, and I'm going to live the dream. And when it came out, like, wait a minute. This is a nightmare. There's another part of this. And everybody would always, you know, put those things against one another, the Martin Luther King mentality versus the Malcolm X mentality. Theo, I would really love to hear your perspective. I know you know a lot about the political arena and, you know, saving face and showing up and saying, like, when they go low, you go high. But then behind scenes, you know, she even comes out in an interview later saying, there's a couple times I didn't want to go high. There's a couple times A, B, C, or D. But because she was the first lady, she had to say these things. What does it mean to really take the moral high ground, Theo? And has that really been a great tool for us?
Well, so taking the moral high ground comes from not being able to militarily defeat somebody by taking the low ground. So we have to understand that we got checkmated into the nonviolent thing. And that's one of the things that we have to always grapple with our condition as Black people, right? We got forced to be the higher person. And that's because violence was a luxury that a lot of us, especially our ancestors, did not have. Anger was a luxury that they did not have. Like, I got to do this interview with the sister Carlotta Walls Lanier of the Little Rock Nine. You feel me? And Carlotta Walls Lanier, she had no outlets to be mad whatsoever. But what that did was very interesting, right? Because when she didn't strike back, now here's just part of the strategic wisdom of nonviolence when that's all you've got left, right? The strategic wisdom of nonviolence be like, when one side maintains their peace, I can see who the bad guys are. This is very, very important, because when both sides are shooting, both sides, you know, may feel justified, but it's even if the people who have been enslaved, whipped, abused, beaten, start shooting back, at that certain moment, the people who are forming the global opinion of those people who are in that position say, don't matter, they're both shooting, right? Whereas nonviolence actually draws a clear delineation. These are the people right here who can't control themselves, and these are the people who can. And just when it comes to the global witnesses that we had when in the civil rights movement, that actually was the best move given the cards that we were dealt, because then that allowed what? LBJ to draw in the troops, right? And so now he actually has federal troops holding back the racists and whatnot. So had we not been enslaved and captured and militarily castrated, then of course that wouldn't have been a thing, right? So it's a continuum of shit. What I feel is necessary is that we have to figure out that this is a vast universe of opportunities and possibilities. This universe came up with violence. I didn't come up with violence. If every human being died right now, this would be a violent ass planet. Look at the Discovery Channel, right? There would be baby gazelles getting their whole neck ate by lions and tigers and bears and shit.
Oh my.
Right. So this is an inherently violent planet. Okay. Now, humans have moralized violence. Humans have moralized violence, right? And I think that given our situation, given our situation where we're at right now, when we decide to go high, we must understand what we're getting out of that. And that's not the best option every single time. And I'll prove it. The reason why the abolitionist movements during slavery gained momentum was directly because of slaves killing their masters. And people point to the abolitionist movements all the time. Look at these nonviolent resistance. But that nonviolent resistance was inspired by people forced to be violent when the odds were against them, right? And so there's a time for it, but it's not every time. I believe that there is a time to get violent. There is a time to strike back, but it's all about strategic outcomes of where you want. Now, the Malcolm in me has to be tempered by the fact that there actually is a strategic wisdom to nonviolence and taking the moral high ground. It's all about one word: win. Win. That's
Win.
it.
You hit such a key point there, Theo. I had a little bit of conversation with someone about this briefly before we got online, and that was the thing. It's like, this is such a, he's like, it's just such a, you know, a win situation. When do we, and it can work for us, and it is a strategic thing, and it's so individualized, and even though we want to look at it from a community perspective, sometimes it's not just a community one-way answer. Mr. A-Soul, you know what? Because you're on a roll today in the comments, I'm going to go to you next. Are you taking the moral high ground? I don't know, but
I am absolutely. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to all our new fans in the chat room from wherever you are, wherever
we appreciate our supporters. Yes.
Yeah, we love them. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, H-Soul, Ashemu, and Twitter, and Instagram.
I don't know why that was so funny.
Just saying.
You have
Oh
plenty
my
of fans.
God.
The
by
brothers of
Foster.
7G need love too. That's all I'm going to
Oh
say.
my God. Oh.
So I think it's important for us to be able to take Michelle Obama's comment and extricate it from maybe the other 3 or 4 comments that follow behind it. Oh, shit.
He said you gotta follow him first.
This is hilarious. This.
No problem. No problem. I love DJs. And so I think it's important for us to understand what I think the essence of what Michelle Obama was saying and what it means for Black people in general when we talk about keeping to the moral high ground.
Yeah.
I think it would be better stated in regards to where Michelle Obama was coming from. Like when you're the queen on the throne, you have nothing to gain by getting off of your throne to address those people who would be seeking to throw stones at your throne. So there's some deep wisdom in her analysis of when they go low, we go high. Well, yeah, when you go high because when you come off of your square to go out to the corner, you demean your authority in actuality. You demean your
big facts, dude. Big
you know
facts.
what I'm saying? And so what she was dropping was some very, very deep wisdom in regards to how to address those who are looking to tear you down merely so that you can get down in the mud with them.
Yeah.
So there's that perspective. The second perspective when it comes to looking at African people, and you know, the thing is Martin Luther King catches a really bad rap. And especially being juxtaposed against someone like Malcolm, like that was the media of the day that juxtaposed those two. But if we're talking about who stood face to face with white people and the gnarling and the spitting, Malcolm didn't do that, right? Malcolm was up north in Harlem, surrounded by Black people, surrounded by people that MLK was doing that down in the gutter south with flags and getting spit on. The amount of people that got shot that marched with King, and you know what he was doing was no mealy mouth, you know, easy coastal chicken, you know, wimp way to address it. It was nothing but pure adult African manhood on display, and we can't allow people to water down that MLK, because that's very real. And don't get me wrong, MLK and Malcolm X are both huge heroes of mine, but I think I think it's important for us to contextualize both of their struggles in such a way that we don't demonize MLK and the courage that it took to do what he did. And so with that being said, I think it's important for us not to get caught up in the, and I'll close with this last piece. African people, indigenous people, are a rhythmic, harmonic people by nature. Somebody posted something on Instagram the other day where they were doing a test, and it was a teacher who stood outside of the classroom and he started hitting the drum, and then he walked into the classroom while he was hitting the drum, and all the kids in the classroom were like, hey, like, what happens to African people when we hear the drum? Meaning, what happens to us when we are rhythmic people?
Yeah.
Dealing with a non-rhythmic people can take us out of our rhythm. We are people that believe in harmony. We are people that believe in justness and balance. And that's not to say that we shouldn't defend ourselves. We absolutely should. However, a lot of what we get caught up in has nothing to do with defending ourselves and has everything to do with us getting caught up in really caring what white folks think of us. And that is something that another where we need to reflect on that and be mindful in this discussion.
That's really good. So you hit so many key components in that space. As we're looking at that piece, I think we have to start turning this inward. We're looking at why we do 7 Generations Black is because we really are trying to make an impact on our people. Somebody do me a favor, drop this in someone's DM, share this with somebody, hit the thumbs up. It costs you nothing to thumbs up us, but it costs you something to super chat us up, so you can super chat us up as well. But keep participating, and this is how we build networks like this. We need you out there to keep helping us grow and expand. But as we talk about really taking the moral high ground, we know when we say this, we often don't think about what that means inside of our camps. And we don't know what that means with one another. Jice, as we start to really look at, we can talk about taking the moral high ground, and we do it in so many aspects, right? But how come when it comes to one another, we're harder on one another?
Great question.
We don't take the moral high ground with one another. We don't settle with one another. It's always, how can I get you before you get me, or whatever else that comes after that?
So I just want to take a second to acknowledge everyone else's thought process, because I would be the first to say that's not how I thought this conversation was going to go. And that's not how I feel at all. So I just thought that I was like, no, hell no. But I hear you, and you've given me some things to think about and some perspective.
Hey, we're making her think.
Y'all are making me think.
So, fellas.
But I would say, even before digging into how we deal with each other, because I think the way that we deal with each other is internalized racism, right? And so what I think that we see is a lack of compassion from the white community towards us, and is the same way that we end up treating each other, right? But I want to kind of expand back to, a little bit on the original question, or the original kind of pretense around this, because in my opinion, I do see all of your points in terms of where we need to be and who we are, and like walking in the essence of, as a greater people, right? And I think there's merit to that. What I do also see is that we, because it's often not strategic, and it's the way that I say about everything else, right? Like, we do so many things that don't have strategy to them, that the way the idea of taking the moral high ground has been forced upon us is mentally and emotionally unhealthy, right? And so that's where you start parading us to start forgiving people who have killed our family before we've even gotten a chance to put, they ain't even made it out of the places that they've been shot down. And we're, on the news trying to get us to forgive. Even when we think about the party that we support, we watch the Republicans, what do they call it? I'm gonna call it nigger rig, but they call it,
Gerrymander.
Gerrymander, thank you.
We can go with nigger rigging.
I'm going nigger rigging. I'm
I'm good with that. I'm good with it.
Thank you. We watch Republicans gerrymander in order for them to move legislation and move, things all around, you know what I'm saying, wherever it is that they want them to be in order for them to win. And then the Democrats, they don't do that same, kind of play, right? And so then who loses in that situation? And so I think what happens in my opinion is that we've been taught this idea that while at a deeper spiritual level, there is a lot of context and validity to it. I think where it plays out on a day-to-day basis is incredibly unhealthy for us to continue to think that we always have to be the bigger person when we are those that are systematically oppressed, when we are those that have the most resources withheld from us, when we're not allowed to get angry, when we're not allowed to show that anger in ways other than I don't know what, really, I feel like we're not allowed to show that anger in ways other than towards each other, right? Like it's not acceptable to show anger towards the system, the police, the government, the school district, but what is acceptable is when I smack a hoe because it just poured out, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, so I feel like there's this space where, if you were to be enlightened and you were to really be on a journey towards, bettering yourself, and you can kind of see what it looks like, and there's all types of, euphemisms for that. I talk about big dogs don't turn around when small dogs bark. I mean, these are all the kind of ideologies that go into, I'm up here, you're operating on this low frequency, I'm operating on this high frequency, and I'm not coming down to your level. But the way that it has been imposed on us, to Theo's point, like so often we have not had options. It's been not a choice, that it's become very mentally and emotionally unhealthy for us. And then we see that pouring out onto each other, because that's really the only way that we're able to, that we are allowed to do that, right? Like they really don't care if we kill each other. They really don't care if we have violence in our streets. They don't care if we're harming our women. They don't care if we're harming our children. Unless they can do something, like take away our kids, like they did with, the sister girl that's trending right now for having her kids kidnapped. But I mean, even those things, those are designed to cause trauma on us, right? But we're not allowed to react in a way that would be indicative of somebody taking away my children. You get what I'm saying? So I think that there's this space that is very unhealthy there.
At the end of the day, it's unnatural. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that we spend too much time as a people trying to walk in this spiritual or walk in the spirit first, because that's what so many of us have been taught from birth. But nature has a role to play. Even the lion, as big and powerful as he is, or she is, the lioness, right, will not allow the jackal, small little scavenger dog, right, or fox, to enter into their domain, especially when there are young lions around, the cubs. They will react, and they will get in that little jackal or that little fox's ass.
They'll kill it. They'll fucking kill it.
Yes, they will set the tone. They will let it be known. You are not welcome here. You're not just going to come in here and do what you want to do. I have youngins here, and you're not going to hurt my youngins. You're not going to hurt my prodigy.
I agree, and I think we have to be careful, though, Lethal, juxtaposing spirituality to nature, right? Because
I'm not juxtaposing spirituality to nature. What I'm saying is the way that the European ideology, religion, has been juxtaposed on our people.
You're right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It has.
You know what my bias is? I don't even consider that spirituality. So that's where I'm fucked up in the game. But yes, what you're saying is right.
There's so many of us out there who do.
Yeah,
I hear you saying, and we don't even realize that we're walking in a space that is unnatural to who we are as creatures.
But that's kind of to the point of why I'm not for that space, right? Because when you are forced to be lowly, we're not operating when we are taking the higher ground, right? This moral high ground. The way that I have seen this, and I am open to seeing it differently, but the way that I have seen this is that We are not voluntarily taking the moral high ground because we recognize the gods and goddesses in us, the king and queens in us, the higher being, the better being, right? We're not walking that road because we recognize the Black excellence that resides in us. That's not why we're walking that road. We're walking that road because that's what is expected of us. That's what we're told to do. And so we're coming from, we are operating out of a place that says that in order for us to be great, we need to forgive, we need to not cheat, we need to not lie, we need to not steal, we need to not do any of these negative, immoral things, right? In order for us to be seen as holier, or holy. I'm not even gonna say holier, right? Because I think there's still that issue of where we see superiority. But we're coming from this low frequency place of being forced into this position, not coming from a place of empowerment, saying, I'm not worried about you. You don't have any power over me. We're like powering down, like you have power over me, and I better back up and let me figure out. No, I would never cheat like that.
Very good point. We're coming from an internalized racist.
God would not appreciate that.
Yeah,
God would not appreciate us need to be doing more work.
Great. I mean, I think that there's like, I said it before, I'm gonna say it again. We were real Malcolm X to each other and to Martin Luther King to the other. And we actually do need to flip that to a certain degree. There is a room to walk the higher path. There is a room in order to not always react in your most anger. So I'm just going to tell you like this. Life want to balance you out, right? Life want to balance you out. So there's some people who actually need to start reacting in anger a little bit more because life keeps giving them tyrants and bullies, and you therefore need to figure out how to assert yourself and how to assert boundaries and make other people respect them, right? So there are people like that. Life will round you out like that. Then there's other people who that's just natural. I was born smacking motherfuckers who smack me, right? I was born breaking that. Like, I don't know no other way. I kill me a nigga quick, right? But what happens is I've seen life also give them situations where it's like, okay, we know you can break necks, right? But at this point, this is actually a more destructive behavior. Can you figure out how to actually be zen right now, right? And neither one of them is right. I believe that this whole universe is trying to well-round people. The question for Black people is, what the hell is the experience of white supremacy making us into? The faster we move into that being, those people, the faster this experience ends for us, right? And so I believe that there is a balance that needs to be had.
Great point.
Right now, among Black people, we got to be a little bit more MLK with each other because we're so wounded. We didn't get a chance to militarily vent the justified anger at those who emasculated and castrated us. So we just aim it inward. And that be leading to all sorts of destructive shit. Black people got wrath like hell, right? And so I just think that we need to figure out what that equilibrium is and figure out where to healthfully vent it at those who deserve it. Because there are those who deserve it. And sometimes we got so much blood in our eye, we think the brother and the sister is the ones who deserve the full sword. And actually that was always the colonizer. So we just have to figure out like what that looks like and what you're willing to do in order to be balanced. It's not either or, actually. I believe it's balanced in when to use the tool at what time.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I feel like that's kind of going back to the strategy space, right? Because it is about strategy, and there is a space of having self-control and knowing when to, to use force and when not to use force. But I would add, I'm not going to say, but I add to that to say that what is happening, what I feel like is happening inside of America is it is a blatant disrespect of Black people. So when we talk about that space of being, these higher beings, right? Like, you don't get to come into my territory and trample all over my shit and mess up my stuff and tear up whatever. And I'm supposed to just be like, well, I forgive you. And I'm going to take, right. But that's what's happening to us, right?
Yeah, but you know why that's happening, Jice? Let's keep it 100 and let's go down a little rabbit hole with the little time that we have. We treat each other that way And the answer lies within us holding up higher standards. With you train people how to treat you. And oftentimes when we get treated like that, it's because so many of us are still trying, to buy in and get bought into the systems that exist here because we lack the confidence to build our own. And what we have to understand is that there's never a buy-in for us inside of this system that we call America. There's no buy-in for us. There is no end. This system is predicated on white supremacy. It's not just a offshoot. It's not a byproduct of something. It is rooted and founded in that. And then when we try to get into the systems of fashion or the systems of justice or the systems of finance and all their systems, then when you are playing another man's game, you are always going to lose. The casino owners in Vegas will tell you that the house always wins. So what really needs to happen is a different shift in mindset where Black people are taught, or at least understanding, that we have to shift out of those systems, else we're always going to get treated like that. We want to go to the Academy Awards and be treated just like Meryl Streep is treated at the Academy Awards. But this named after fucking Oscar, you're not going to win a fucking Oscar. You're not going to be valued. The whole system is rigged against you. Yeah. So a lot of that is that, to Jice's point, is that internalized racism where we walk into a White House, pun intended, and expect to be treated in all of our great Blackness and valued for who we are. And that's never going to happen.
But part of the internalized racism is that we don't expect to be treated that way. Like, I expect to be treated that way now, but it took me 37 years to get here, where when I walk in somewhere, like, no. But I would assert that those of us here on this panel have walked into our greatness in that space, right? But so many of us have not. That we don't walk in.
I've always been a fuck that kind of person. So.
Yeah, but the people on this panel are the people who are on this panel are working on a day-to-day basis to build alternative systems to render the current systems obsolete.
That's true.
That my point is that too many of us are not trying to build alternative systems. They're just trying to put a Black face on it, and that's never going to work for us.
So let me take this moment to then now support independent Black media, because to your point, that representation does not exist in where the majority of us watch. And you know, we talked about this before, where we live in this like bubble, right? Like we live in a bubble, because I hang out with people who look like y'all. I hang out with people who talk and speak and think and read and study like y'all, right? So now what happens is that I think this is how most of us are thinking, and it's not, right? There are 44 million Black folks, and there's like 44 million Black folks who ain't thinking this way. And so, you know, when we see that, like those people are being infused with all this other messaging, which is why this conversation is important, to talk about the moral high ground. Because if we're going to talk about the moral high ground in a space of being a people of excellence and being a people of greatness, then we're talking about a deeper level of enlightenment than what's actually happening. Because what's actually happening is that we're being taken advantage of on a regular basis. We are being, bullied into spaces. We're being pushed into doing things that are physically not good, mentally not good, emotionally not good. And not just us, but also those who we affiliate, which is why I brought in the Democrats and the Republicans, because they don't operate on the same type of frequency, when we look at even how things move politically. Yeah. No, and we go hard with these Democrats.
I think that is what's important for us as Black people is to not lose ourselves in all of this, and just as an individual, right? In general, the better things in my life have come from when I exercise some kind of patience. You know what I'm saying? The better things in my life have come when I've been able to get past my initial anger reaction and figure out what's going on inside of somebody else's head and not just the loudness of what's in my head. Right. When it comes to building relationships with Black people, I have been served by using my higher self. You understand what I'm saying? It took me a long time in order to be able to assert how I truly felt to white folks. Actually, I was raised in a situation where I was one of the only. You know what I'm saying? When you're black and your IQ tests through the roof, and before you know it, you're the only black person in this space, the only black person in that space, right? And when I became more aware of my people's history, like in like high school, then I was like, no, I'm not going to change no more. You know what I'm saying? And but what I feel is that I have been able to just assert my boundaries with people in plain English. And, you know, when I talk to white folks and I let them know, you know, so we, you know, this cool white person, we got a certain vibe, but I'm going to tell you, I don't play this and I don't play that. If you understand that about me, then we're going to be all right, you know? And I'm not ever going to like I can be a peacemaker and fully be aware that like black people have every right to feel the urge for war. I tell white people all the time, you would. Like y'all went to war over high taxes. Yeah, that's the Boston Tea Party. Like y'all killed people because they were interrupting your own slave trade, right? Like you weren't even the slaves. So rest assured, had you been in our situation, you'd be much more violent. I have peace, but I'm not gonna put every black person on the like you got to get like me. You know what I'm saying? In fact, my peacemaker work is more effective when black people are ready to be violent, because that's how diplomacy works. Diplomacy only works with the threat dangling of war. So if black people do not have the bandwidth to play higher self with all these white folks, you're not supposed to. You've been through too much. You see what I'm saying? And that is something that is just, both things are true at the exact same time. They both live within me at the exact same time. I can play peacemaker because my own spiritual path involves that. But what I always do is acknowledge that I have war in me, and under the right circumstances, you motherfuckers will see it.
I think it's important to understand and make the distinction here that war and violence are not synonymous with each other.
They're not.
Because we could be at war and should be at war right now, but it doesn't necessarily, the biggest part of our war is not even violent at all, right? Like that's why we're not ready for any violent action, and people will say it all through the chat room. We ain't got a playbook. We ain't got the mindset. You run out to war now, or run out to violence now, you're gonna get your ass whooped because you haven't done all of the necessary steps, which is also war, to engage your enemy. And so again, for me, the question always becomes, or is always turned back on, to what are we going to do internally, to Theo's point, to understand that A, we're at war, B, be preparing and engaging in the levels of war, that of where you are, what you're, and to C, which I tell my son, often remind him, survive the encounter. Don't allow your emotions in any particular given situation, especially out there in these streets, to allow you to get caught into a situation that leaves you behind enemy lines. Like everything, Jice keeps coming back to this strategy. And I know every single person on this panel, everybody on this panel agrees with that, the need for strategy.
That's real. I think so Theo, I think that was your mindset moment. I really feel like that is a switch in the mindset, and that's what we need to really switch that mindset. I'm gonna give it to you next, Lethal. In this mindset switch, we realize it is an internal thing that we have to work on inside of ourselves with the Black community. How do we get this space to find what our playbook is, what set of values we're playing against when our enemy is playing from one space and it doesn't fit the space that we're playing from? How do we really switch this mindset to actually win?
So I think what we have to understand is this, right? The moral high ground is a lovely place. It's a lovely place to be, right? Psychologically, emotionally, holistically, spiritually, the moral high ground is a lovely place to be. That said, though, the moral high ground is not going to stop a bullet. It's not going to stop white supremacy. It hasn't worked so far. So we have to think about that. And I'm not about rage, but I am about righteous rage, right? And what I mean by that is viewing anger as a tool, right, to help you respond to upsetting situations. You understand what I'm saying? The research overwhelmingly indicates that feeling angry increases optimism, creativity, effective performance. And research suggests that expressing anger can lead to more successful negotiations in life, to include on the job. You understand what I'm saying? And we have to not be afraid to do what is natural. And what I mean by that is, in the context of the society and the framework in which we're residing, not living, embrace other ideas that are intended to empower your people, empower yourself, defend your legacy. This is a society that is built on the strength of its economy.
Yeah.
And I keep saying again, there's a reason why over a certain number of years, you know, due to how we have been treated as a people, billions of dollars, trillions of dollars have been lost. There is a reason why. And it is in that space and with that knowledge that we should begin to realize and see that we do have some power, and we do have an ability, and we need a strategy. We need a strategy. Yeah. But in the absence of a collective strategy, that doesn't mean you can't develop an individual strategy. You understand what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that you can't say to yourself, I'm not going to go to this store and support this Korean store or this predominantly white store or this predominantly white institution. I'm going to go ahead and travel the additional 10 to 15 miles and support Black businesses and keep money in my own people's pockets. You understand what I'm saying? That's something that an individual can do until the collective catches up.
That's perfect. That's it right there. Jice, you started us off in this space. Did you? I don't know who started us off. No, you didn't, because it would have went a total different direction. My bad. Go ahead and end us off, though. What would you like to say for your rapping words?
It would have went a whole different direction.
It would have went a whole different direction. Never mind. It wasn't you. And thank you. Shout out to our girl, Misha, for super chatting us up. We see you. You got some big fans over there, Honorable Protector Initiative. We see y'all. Go ahead.
That's good.
So, I think thinking about the mindset and, where we go from a 7-generational lens, I'm going to come back to propaganda, right? Like, there is a propaganda component mentally, visually to this moral high ground, right? Like, think about, like the fight movie, right? Like any fight movie, whatever fight movie, right? Like, whoever's going to win eventually, right? Like, but they never start out winning in the first fight, right? They always get their ass kicked in the first fight, right? Somebody throws sand in their eyes, they trip them up, they sucker punch them, they always doing some shit that ain't right, right? And then you be like, oh, that's messed up, right? But they have the moral high ground, right? So like now you see them train and they get out there and they, dig in, right? And then they come back and ultimately they're the victor, right? They come out triumphant. Like, that is a propaganda mindset to keep telling us that if we keep taking the high road, eventually maybe we'll see some level of triumph. And I just call bullshit. And I say that, like, there has to be a space and a place where we start to demand respect. And I feel like from a 7-generational lens, that's going to go back to educating our people on who we are. Because you don't demand respect when you don't know who you are. You don't demand respect when you feel like you're nothing. And the infighting that we see in our communities and and the, you know, the violence that we see towards ourselves, the way that we treat our bodies. I think we talked a little bit about that, you know, last week, and thinking about, you know, even what we eat, what we consume, all of those things. You don't do that when you see yourself as valuable, right? Like when you realize you have this one body and you have this one mind and this one soul and this, you know, and you get out here, you don't treat yourself the same way, right, as you do when you don't see value in yourself. And so, you know, when I'm thinking about 7 generationally, when I think about where we get to a place where the moral high ground becomes because we are a people of excellence and we recognize that, and we are a people of greatness and we recognize that, that doesn't come without us being very intentional about how we teach our children, about what we're infusing into our next generation and our next generation and our next generation after that. So, you know, that's my mindset moment, is we've got to do more work on us to know who we are. So when we take the high ground, we're taking the high ground from a position of power and not a position of lack.
There you have it. It's been another amazing episode of 7 Generations Black. Remember to keep hustling hard for your 7 Generations Black. Meet us here next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Remember, the essence of a strategy is choosing what not to do. So let's be strategic in what we don't do, and let's show up as our best selves. Until next time, peace and love, family.